what isn't in it, that what is it. Hey, welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my review for Netflix's original film. Let me know in the comments below, were you excited about this one? Do you love these type of house horrors? Let's jump in. An immigrant in search of an American dream who, after being forced to take a room in a boarding house, finds herself in a nightmare she can't escape. So Santiago, the director of this film, this is his first feature. He's done a bunch of shorts, but he has worked in visual effects quite a bit as well. So when we see the visual effects needed in this film, they are a thing that stands out. When we see Santiago use visual effects, it's done in a way that feels very tangible, very real, very creepy. So you have that to look forward to. So although this is his first feature, I really feel like he's done a great job. This film has two halves. The first half is shining a light on our protagonist who has had a really tough time looking after her mother. Now, because of that, her life was on hold. She ends up in America trying to form a life. But we just feel for her. It's a very good way for us to become audience members that are on her side. So as we watch the hardships she goes through, where she eventually finds herself working in a crappy job in a really dodgy looking house, she still has a demeanor of, yeah, I'm going to get through this, but everything in life seems to be just really dragging her down. When she trusts somebody, they betray her. It's all of that, like continuously just battering a person down. And so when she gets to this house, like, oh my gosh, how much more can she take? And then when we get to the house and we go, okay, now I know why this film is called No One Gets Out Alive. And so the horror starts to formulate around this house, which I believe they built a lot of the sets. The director himself has said that he took inspiration from The Haunting of Hill House, Panic Room, and The Ritual, which is one of the writers from this film. So you immediately kind of get a sense of the tone of a story that is thriller and then horror in places. It does the classic jump scares in places, but then also there'll be reflections or eyes or heads like in the background in a shot somewhere, which will really give you the creep. So it kind of ticks all the cliche boxes and you might go, ugh, I don't like those. But if you use them in a way that is actually forwarding the plot but necessary, but also keeping you surprised because you don't know what you're going to see around the corner, then it becomes entertaining. My wife watched the first half of this film and she was like, yep, I'm gonna leave now, because she doesn't do horror. Much like myself, I managed to stick it out to the end for you guys. I have to say, I was scared for most of it because the tone and the tenseness was there, but then once we get into the meat of it, I was more interested as to how our protagonist is going to survive, what's actually happening in this house. That is all very interesting. So although the tenseness is there and you might be like shining and like ducking behind your duvet or your jumper or your partner, you are probably also going to be gripped into what the hell is going on here. And for the most part, you won't guess. It is a different story. It's a story that we haven't seen that often. It is a mechanics that we've seen used, and the house obviously is tried and tested in horrors. We've seen that thousands of times when it comes to horrors, but the story behind it is very interesting. Now, there's some CG use in the end that I thought was very good, and there's something that we see that I thought, whoa, that is something I haven't seen that kind of reminds me of something that, without doing spoilers, that Guillermo del Toro would be proud of that to be in his film. And I thought, oh, okay, I see what they've done there. I like the way they've set up story mechanics to have that fruition at the end. I feel like this is a satisfying ending. It's not always easy to finish a horror like this. I think the endings are one of the hardest things to do as a writer as well. To get it right, it's hard to make everybody satisfied, but I thought this was clever and probably accurate to what would happen with what has happened with our characters. So I'm going to give this 4 Nicolas Cages out of 5. I enjoyed this. Probably won't be everybody's cup of tea, but with the really artistic camera work, the cinematography and tone and presence that this house has, and you experiencing it much like some of the character techniques that we have from actors in films like Panic Room and Haunting of Hill House, and then the camera techniques in Panic Room kind of being referenced in the building and the shape of this house, where you get to see more. Some of the many landing shots of the spiraled staircase that goes up and up and up, and you get to see all of that. So you have, even though it's a house and it's very contained, you feel like you have wide shots. You get to see what's going on. And then when it's close and personal, you're wondering, please go back to one of those wider shots so I can see what's happening. It's that sort of technique used in this film that really shows that this was like a passion project for the director, and he wanted to scare you but also tell you a story to keep you riveted. And I feel like that did happen here. So I'm going to talk spoilers now. This is your moment to kind of jump away if you haven't seen the film yet. But for now, chat to me in the comments below. Remember, if you're talking spoilers, to put the ... spoiler word and then leave a gap so that people won't be spoiled themselves. So the box is the key. We saw right at the beginning there was this like square footage of people filming. They'd obviously raided a tomb of some kind, a temple. It looked very Aztecian. I don't know if that's correct, but it had that sort of like, oh, this is really old. And they find this box, and then things start happening. And what I understand this box to be is there is an entity, a demon of some kind. It reminds me of like the crossroad demons that you make a deal with in Supernatural. And so here we have this box being passed on through the generations. It's obviously stayed in this house. We have the two brothers, one who has mental issues, but through trial and error, I guess, as they sacrifice a person on their altar, and this demon comes and puts you in a place, in a zone where it's like a memory where it entices you to stay. And when you accept yourself in this memory or in this weird dream state world, once you've accepted it, then it kind of takes your head and feeds on you. And that the exchange of that is that you get healing, you get power. And you see that reflected in, I think it's Decker or Becca's face, where he has all these veins going over it, and he becomes much more alert and aware, very strong as well. Reflect that to a couple of days before, where we see him banging his head against the door, and it's like, okay, so that's what is exchanged from the entity to the person. But it also feels like there is an addiction to doing it. So once we get towards the end of this film, we start seeing all the ghosts pop up, and we know now how long they've been doing this for, which is horrific. But also the cost of that, because what you're willing to do for family to keep them in a state of alertiveness. But yeah, the moral ambiguity there is obviously very rife. So then once our female protagonist, the one that we know needs to survive, she gets out. It obviously backfired this state of dreamlike state, because she didn't want to go through what she went through with her mother again. And so she manages to fight the demon off, get up, get that blade, which is very interesting, and basically sacrifice the one brother to it, and she gets healed. We saw where her ankle rights itself, the scratches, everything gets healed, and you think she's going to step out and go and live her life. But no, there's those veins over her face, that addictiveness, that alertness, and the realization how she can use the house or the box and the entity, become strong and powerful, perhaps start sacrificing people herself. Eventually, I feel like that's where it would lead. Maybe at first she'll be like, I'll only do it to bad people. But I imagine that's where those other brothers started. Yeah, so let me know in the comments below what you thought about this. Thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.